Hello and welcome to the Casual Cinecast, powered by Cinelinx. My name is Chris, and as always, joining me is Mike. How are you doing, Mike?
I'm doing well, Chris. Thanks for asking.
Good, glad to hear it. And last but not least is Justin. How are you today, sir?
So awesome. Thank you for asking.
I thought at first you were going to say so, but two so's and an awesome is great.
It's quite a bit better than so.
All right.
All right.
As always, we like to start off every episode talking about what is on our minds, which is usually the media we've been watching or reading. Then for our feature review, we will be reviewing Shoplifters. That's right, we pulled a fast one on you. We changed our review the last minute because this movie looks better than Alita Battle Angel. And we wanted to see it before the Oscars.
Also truth.
But no worries, Justin and Chris still saw Alita, and there will be some discussion. So if you were looking forward to it, never fear.
Yeah, and don't forget that each month we review a film from the Criterion Collection, which is voted on by you, the listeners. So go check out our latest episode on Mulholland Drive, and then I think next week we are going to do our new episode on The Princess Bride. So keep your ears open for that one.
Overwhelmingly won the audience poll that we put out on Twitter.
Understandable.
Poor Punch Drunk Love and In the Mood for Love.
Yeah. I know, it's a shame. Those other movies I think might be better movies, but less known. But it's okay because I'm not upset about watching The Princess Bride again.
Nah, everybody loves it, which is probably why it won.
Yeah.
Low-hanging fruit.
Yeah. So if you want to participate in any of our polls moving forward or send us any questions in regards to the films that we're watching each week, you can send those to Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Casual Cinecast. You can also email us directly at casualcinemedia@gmail.com. And then, of course, don't forget to go onto iTunes if you like the show, maybe even if you hate the show, and give us a 5-star review. Let us know what you think. It helps people find the show.
Yeah, and if you do hate the show, give us a 5-star review. Tell us what you think.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll see if we can do we'll see if we can do better for you.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then, of course, don't forget to subscribe, whatever podcast app or way that you listen to podcasts on, subscribe to us so you can get, the show automatically every time it comes out.
Absolutely. And before we get going, we wanted to take a moment to talk about our friends over at Real Outreach, which is at realoutreach.com or on Twitter at realoutreach. And this is a charity organization for sending underprivileged kids to the movies. Currently, they are working towards getting some Captain Marvel screenings going for a bunch of underprivileged kids who can't afford to go to the movies themselves.
Yeah, which is a super important thing. Like, I think it doesn't seem as important as like maybe other things that you could give to, like, I don't know what, I'm not going to name specific things, but like I think there's something like really important about going to like the cinema and having a good time when you normally can't do that.
Yeah, it was super important to me when I was a kid. It's important to me now.
Yeah.
That's why we're here, isn't it, gentlemen?
Yeah, it is. So I would hate to think of like kids who just can't go to the movies to see Captain Marvel or Avengers or whatever, simply because they don't have the means to, So Real Outreach, I think, is doing something really cool, and it's run by some really nice people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Oop.
Jinx.
And
he got you.
Before we get into what's on our minds, the one thing we did want to announce is that we are going to be doing our Oscar bet again, which basically you can submit your picks for the winners of the Oscars this year, and whoever gets the most correct gets to pick a film for us to review on a bonus episode.
Ooh la la.
Yeah.
We haven't done this in a while.
Yeah, it's been about a year, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Since
roughly.
the last Oscars.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we're also going to be making our own predictions and putting out our list on social media, but we're not eligible to win since we kind of get to pick the movies every week.
It's true.
Yeah. And really, that's really the only right way to do it because I'm going to win this year. I may not have, due to technicalities last year, won. And the technicalities being that I chose the wrong winners.
Yeah, you chose all the wrong selections.
Yeah, right. But this year, I'm going to win, and I'd hate to have to choose a movie for somebody. Like I already, like you said, we already do that. So we want to give somebody else a shot.
Chris would want to do another episode on Sallow.
Yeah.
Yes, again.
Or the 120 Days of Sodom.
Yes,
funny.
one of my favorites.
We could do, he might pick more John Woo films.
Oh boy, that's my second favorite.
Yeah. We should have 2 separate reviews of Mission Impossible 2
Just
in one episode, and then separate them with a review of Face Off.
Done.
perfect.
All right.
Like
So
John Woo Oreo.
if you want to send in your predictions, you can send those on social media via like a screenshot, or you could just type them in to @casualcinecast, or email them to casualcinemedia@gmail.com. Send us your full list. Like it's literally all of the categories. So we're not even picking like the top 5 categories. It's like every single category. Send us your full list.
Yeah, absolutely. Please do. It should be fun.
And I think I'll be watching the Oscars, I assume. So we'll probably be tweeting out like the occasional like update on who's winning currently, and we'll of course announce the winner pretty quick after the Best Picture is announced on Oscar night.
Yeah, Justin will be sure and do that.
You just volunteered yourself, buddy.
I'm editing that out. It's not, so I don't have to do that anymore.
All right, makes sense. Smart man. All right, are we ready with that to move into what is on our minds for this week?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, let's do it.
do this.
You on the mark!
Okay, so Mike, why don't you go first? What is on your mind this week?
So this week, I watched a new Netflix show that I have been hearing a lot about and finally decided to give it a shot. It's only 8 20-something minute episodes, and then it's done. And that series is Russian Doll.
Oh.
This series features the re-emergence of Natasha Lyonne.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, who I have not seen since like American Wedding. At least I don't think,
Yeah.
right?
I think that's fair.
Yeah, she may have been doing stuff, but I don't know what it was, right? And I can't Google it. I can't possibly. But here she is, starring in a show. And she is pretty good. I think, she really fills the screen. She seems comfortable. She's got charisma. She has chemistry with pretty much everyone she's in this, sharing the frame with.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe some stronger directors maybe need to rein her character in a bit in certain episodes, but I think that's pretty minor. Ultimately, this series is about a woman who is a chain-smoking alcoholic who parties and has one-night stands with people. And on her 36th birthday, she keeps dying over and over and over again. And when she wakes up, she's back at her birthday party again. And she has to figure out what is causing this and how she can get past this night and move on with her life.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? There are some plot twists on top of that, which I will not get into here. But I definitely recommend watching it. It's an overly done concept at this point, as Justin just pointed out. The dying over and over again thing. But I think this show is just unique enough to get through most of that fatigue that you might think you feel with that. I think the worst part about it is probably that the first couple of episodes really take their time to explore those rules, And as someone who has seen plenty of movies where the day resets and they have to live the same day over and over and over again, I kind of know the rules. So I don't want to spend the first 2 episodes, which is only 40 minutes, but I don't want to spend those first 2 episodes establishing rules that I already understand, even if the show needs to do that. It's just kind of a necessary thing you got to do, right? You got to establish your own rules and how you're reliving the same day is different than Edge of Tomorrow or Groundhog Day or Happy Death Day, So I get why they have to do it, but I think once this show gets past episode 3, it really moves. And it's completely worth watching. And I don't think there will be a season 2. I hope there won't be. But I am definitely looking forward to Natasha Lyonne being in more things. I think this woman is a star.
Before we go too far, I did look up the things that she's been in lately, and we'll probably get an angry tweet or something, but she apparently is quite heavily featured in Orange is the New Black. So she has been doing that lately, but I haven't watched it personally.
Yeah, never seen a single episode of that.
And you are also, mentioned American Wedding, but you're forgetting the fourth entry in that film, American Reunion, as well, that she's done since then.
Wait, was there one after American Wedding?
Yep. Reunion.
The Reunion one.
What? Did I see that one?
I don't know. I never did, and I like the American Pie movies.
When did that come out?
I did see the Reunion one.
2012.
Yeah.
What? Does it what? Does it have Jason Biggs?
Yep.
Yeah, as far as I know.
Sean William Scott?
I think so, yeah.
Yep.
He didn't do anything.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Yeah,
What is he
it's
doing?
everybody. Chris Klein and Tara Reid, even.
Get the hell out of here.
Mina
What's it about?
Suvari?
Is it just like a high school reunion?
Yeah, essentially. And then they get up to their same hijinks again.
Does Jason Biggs get caught masturbating or like...
Something happens. I think he's having sex with his wife, is what I believe.
Okay. Well, Eugene Levy and
something
Jennifer
crazy
Coolidge
happens.
also returns, and John Cho reprises
What about
his
Shannon
role.
Elizabeth?
Oh, yeah. I don't think she was in...
I don't think she was in any of the
first
ones
one?
but the first. Yeah. Oh no, she's in there.
She was in the
She's
second
in the
one.
cast. She's listed in here.
Oh.
She was in the second one. You're right.
Get out of here. What's the rating on IMDb for that movie?
6.7 out of 10 stars. That's not bad, really.
Yeah, it's better than I would have assumed. I got to check this movie out. This is
I know.
crazy to me.
I know. I forgot that it existed, and now I want to watch it just because, I've always liked the movies. I don't know why I never saw it at the time.
I don't think I do like those movies, but I still want to watch it.
This is, it came out in 99, the first one, so this would be their 20th year reunion, and I think they're really missing an opportunity by not putting
Way
one
to
out.
do it a few years too early.
Yeah.
You could have waited for Russian Doll and the return of Natasha Lyonne.
Right. What we should do, what I really want, it'll be like the Seven movie, 7 Up, where every 7 years they record this, they do a documentary on the same people, right?
Oh, I thought you were
They'll just
talking about the movie actually called Seven by David Fincher.
Yeah.
No.
I was like, how are you going to connect these two? This is what I want.
Yeah.
That's what I want to know.
No, but every 10 years we should get a new American Pie movie, and it'll be like a reunion until they're very old, until we're all very old, like in their 80s. I think that'd be interesting.
Maybe. I feel like we don't really want to see like Jason Biggs. Like it's only a matter of time before they have to just put him on like the sex offender list, his character, for getting into like these crazy like hijinks,
Right.
And that just might get sad. Like
That's
he's
good.
gonna get
That's-
like
That's an
locked
arc.
out, like naked, and like there's gonna be like children around or something. You know what I mean? Like there's only so many hijinks you can get him in where he can't get arrested for being indecent or something.
Yeah. Well, what were we talking about?
Yeah, that we went down
Russian
a rabbit hole
Doll.
there.
It's pretty
yes.
good. Give it a shot. It's 8 episodes. They're all short. It's funny. It's smart. It's emotional. And it gets pretty heavy at times, which I appreciated.
Yeah. I love all of those things. All of those
Yeah.
qualities.
Yeah. Amy Poehler is a producer on it for sure. And I think she's great. So
All right. Noted. Writing it down.
that's all I've really got this week. I watched a bunch of other stuff, but we have a lot on our plate. So I'm going to pass it over to Chris.
Pick me. Oh, yes.
Oh, I mean, Justin.
Damn it.
Oh, I didn't want to go yet.
Okay, Chris, what'd you watch, buddy?
All right. Kurosawa month at the Alamo Drafthouse continued this week.
You're going to rub it in
And-
my face some more.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also my face.
Yeah, this time Justin didn't come with me, but they showed Ron this week, and I got to watch that. Ron was one of his last films that he made. I think it was his second to last. I think Dreams was the next one that he made. But yeah, it was made in 85, and it was one of his only color movies. I think Kagemusha was another color movie, but I don't really... And Dreams, of course, is, but I don't know that there's that many more color films. But man, this color film, the color just pops. It's
Yeah, it does.
really spectacular to watch. The reason I love films so much is I'm always looking for that moment of awe, that whether it's, an acting performance or something technically that's being done really well, or just anything that kind of makes my jaw drop down to the floor, right? And I'm always in search for this. This isn't my favorite Kurosawa film, but there is probably one of my favorite moments in this film. And that is the moment where one of the castles is burning, and you have all this color, and the castle is actually on fire, and then the main character of the story just gives this haunting performance as he emerges from the burning castle, and it's just so great in this film. And it's one of the things that shows you what cinema can do, what separates it from anything else. And I think Kurosawa was really a master of that. And I really, even though it's not one of my favorite films, I really love this film, and I thought it was really amazing. And not to mention, even just that one moment where my jaw's on the floor, but there's, hundreds of people riding horses all over the place with detailed costumes. And then there's, soldiers just running around, not on horses, but it's just so detailed, so amazing. It reminded me of Lawrence of Arabia in that scope, and just, I don't know if you could tell, but I liked it. So, yeah.
It's about as long
should.
as Lawrence of Arabia, right? Like, it's pretty long, Ron?
Yeah, it's about 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Not bad.
45 minutes, yeah. So it's pretty long. I did have to use the bathroom while I watched it.
It's about as long as all of Russian Doll, if my math is correct.
Yeah, about that, yeah.
I actually have not seen this movie since DVD a long, long time ago. But I remember also really enjoying it. And you're right. The use of color is like unforgettable. I think, I don't know how you said it, Kagemusha, his other color movie.
That might be how you pronounce it.
Yeah,
I always pronounce it Kagemusha.
I think that movie is even better looking. But yeah, I agree. This movie is certainly well worth seeing, and I'm totally jealous that you got to see it like on film.
Yeah, it was actually the 4K restoration too, so that was...
I bet.
Yeah, pretty awesome. Pretty lucky. Did have to drive just put it out there so maybe you don't feel quite so jealous, but it's in like an hour and 15 minutes there, an hour and 15 minutes back, plus a 3-hour movie, so it was like 3 hour, like a 7-hour trip, including the movie.
That was your whole day.
Yeah.
I've done that before, plenty of times. I remember one time Justin and I, didn't we travel like 2.5 hours to see Breathless on film?
Yes we did.
In a movie theater.
Oh.
Yeah.
And that movie's only like an hour and a half or less. Nice. So most of that time was not spent watching a movie.
Yeah. Right.
Cool. So anything else on Ran?
Ron? No. If you haven't seen it, go watch it because it's totally worth it. It is Kurosawa probably at his most pessimistic. So it's kind of a downer. We're even, like we talked about Rashomon last week, which is pretty negative on humanity, but at the end there's a glimmer of hope. The hope is gone in Ron. There's no more hope. So it's more of a downer than his other films, I think. So
interesting.
But yes, I am done. Justin, what is on your mind, sir?
All right, so first up, I have two things that I'm going to talk about this week. The first one is the PG-13 rom-com starring Rebel Wilson, Isn't It Romantic?
Oh.
Yes, which I watched because, just real quick, I want to say I guested on the Movie Geek and Proud podcast this week, and that episode should be out by the time you're hearing this, so go check out our review of that one as well. But briefly here, and spoiler-free here, I wanted to talk about the film a little bit because I personally really enjoyed it. It wasn't a great movie by any means, but it's certainly my favorite movie of 2019 so far because it's just kind of a pleasant film that's, it doesn't always succeed, but for the most part it succeeds enough in just being like really, really pleasant and at times funny. And the one thing that I want to say about the film that I don't really like Rebel Wilson that much. She doesn't
in the film
and in other films and other performances of hers. I've never really been a big fan.
Nor I.
Yeah, which is understandable in my opinion. I'm with you, Mike. But in this one, she's surrounded by such a great cast, and everybody else in it is so good that it like lifts up the film around her. And she's not terrible. She has her moments where she made me laugh, but for the most part, like everybody else is like firing on all cylinders all the time. Like Liam Hemsworth is fantastic in it. Yeah,
that's what I've heard. I've of the few bits of things I've heard about this movie, it's that Liam Hemsworth is the breakout here.
Yeah,
it's really not fair that those guys get to be so good looking and funny. Like usually it's one or the other. You're either the funny guy or the good looking guy, right? But it's just not fair that you can be both.
Yeah, and Chris, you saw the movie too, right?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I really enjoyed it. I don't have a thing against Rebel Wilson, but I don't know that I've seen any of her films like Pitch Perfect or the Bridesmaid film I haven't seen. So this is actually, I think, maybe my introduction to her. And I was fine with her. I liked her.
It sounds like a better place to start than those movies.
Yeah, probably so.
I haven't actually seen the Pitch Perfect movies myself, but I've seen the trailer for Pitch Perfect 2 or 3 or something multiple times. And basically, like, Rebel Wilson's shtick just kind of seems to be like the female version of like Chris Farley, which is like, fall down and get made fun of for your weight.
A little bit less like screaming and yelling, and a bit more of that like subtle, sort of dry,
like that awkward
New Zealand
Kristen
humor.
Wiig. Yeah, like Kristen Wiig with a New Zealand accent.
Yeah, I would compare her a bit more to Jermaine Clement.
Not that funny.
Well, not as funny, but just like
Kristen Wiig.
The mannerisms. And and maybe I'm just like really leaning into the New Zealand thing.
Maybe I'm thinking of specifically of Bridesmaids, where she's opposite Kristen Wiig, and they're both having like an awkward whispering contest.
Oof. Yeah,
in their scenes.
Yeah. So basically, the plot of this film is that she hits her head while being mugged, and then she wakes up in a PG-13 romantic comedy movie. Whereas her whole life, she's like decided to hate rom-coms because her mom told her that she's not pretty enough to like have a happy ending like in a rom-com. So then she has to kind of figure out, the rules of this rom-com world, and, similar to Russian Doll, like how to get out of it and what it's going to take to get out of this world of like rom-coms that she has decided to hate, basically. And, they have a lot of fun making fun of old rom-com tropes. So if you hate rom-coms, I think the movie's a little bit for you. Like you're more likely to enjoy it than a regular one. But also if you love rom-coms, they're making fun of them, but at the same time, it's a bit of a love letter to those, 80s and 90s.
Yeah, I was about to say, it seems like it's maybe calling some things out while reveling in other things.
Yeah, it kind of embraces the tropes to a certain extent, and becomes a romantic comedy on its own, I think, to a certain extent.
Yeah. I think if I had to maybe make like the biggest complaint that I have about the movie is that I think they don't let the audience or give the audience enough credit to understand the tropes that they're making fun of or get the jokes that they're doing, because there are several times in the movie where they call the joke out explicitly with like a character through dialogue where they say what the joke is. You know what I mean? Like there's a moment where they're talking about how it's dumb in rom-coms when a character runs in slow motion, and at a certain point in the movie she has to do like an epic scene and she like runs in slow motion, but like rather than let us just understand that that's what they're doing, they go to a close-up on her face, and in slow motion she's going, "This slow motion is stupid," or something like that, right? And there's several moments like that in the film where it's like, just trust the audience, because everybody in my theater was laughing before they cut to that close-up of her calling out the slow motion, right?
Right.
And that's my biggest complaint, is that it tries to like point the humor out, and it's a bit like Ron Burgundy in Anchorman when he's like, "We are laughing and we are friends. Isn't this joke funny?" It does that a bit too much for me.
Okay, that makes sense. But other than that, it's worth it. Like, so out of 5, you sitting at like a 3.5?
3.5. A solid, very, very solid 3.5.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm right there.
Nice.
Yeah, definitely. It's a real fun movie. I wholeheartedly recommend it. You go to the theater, take someone you like, you can laugh together.
Yeah. I probably would have seen this had we had another day. But we just didn't. So, alas.
Yeah. So I saw that one, and the other thing I saw was the film that we were going to review this week, which was Alita: Battle Angel.
Yes. You took that bullet, so I didn't have to.
Yes. I guess.
Well, I don't know. You know what? Hang on. Maybe it wasn't a bullet. I don't want to lead by presuming to know what you thought. So.
Well, it wasn't not a bullet. Yeah.
Like
no.
A rubber bullet. Non-lethal.
That's a good way of putting it. It's a bit like pepper spray to the face, we'll say. So, anyways, the movie. I want to start off by saying I had a weird experience that I didn't know I was in for when I went to the theater, because the theater that I went to see it at was offering at the time that I wanted to go see the movie, the only showtime at that time was something called SX. You know how sometimes they have like IMAX, and this particular theater has like RPX, which is supposed to be like the best screen resolution possible and like the best sound quality. Well, they have this thing called SX, and I was like, I don't know what that is, but I know it's not 3D, so I'm going to go with that one, right? Well, what it is in certain scenes in the movie, they have projectors that project an image onto the walls that are to the left and right of you while you're in the theater.
What?
Like, and extend the image on the screen.
Huh.
To like, so like 3/4 of the walls, like the left, right, and front wall are all like movie at certain points in the film. Like, and I couldn't really grasp onto like what points they decided to do that on, because sometimes it was in like wide establishing shots when we go to like a new area. Sometimes it was like in the middle of a scene, and it would be during a close-up and like a conversation. There didn't seem to be much rhyme or reason to it. But have you guys heard of this before or experienced this?
No.
This is new to me.
Yeah. It sounds terrible.
It kind of was, because it was really distracting, because all of a sudden like it would just light up. Like the transitions weren't very like smooth.
Wait, so just so I make sure I'm understanding you correctly, so it just got wider essentially, right? So is there empty screen, or does it just project onto the wall? Because projecting on the wall doesn't sound good.
And having extra screen to the left and right of your normal screen doesn't sound good either.
Yeah.
Right. So they are just projecting on the walls. The walls have like all like the normal like lighting sconces and paint and all that removed, so it's just a white wall, even though they did have like the fire alarm still on the wall, and like does that sort of thing they have to have there.
It's projecting over the fire exit?
Not the fire exit, but like, you know, like the little fire alarm that would like light up and spin and make noise.
Yeah.
So it was projecting on that, I noticed. But like, and also it wasn't projecting on a screen, so it was kind of dim. And I don't think it was really there to look at, because it maintained like all of the action you needed to see on the regular screen. It was just like an extension of the edges. Just
a reason to charge you a couple bucks more in the ticket.
Yeah, they did. They didn't charge me as much as IMAX, but I don't know. It was a bizarre sort of weird experience. I tried to take like a panorama with it in my phone, but I couldn't do it because it was too dark.
Were you the only person in the theater?
No, there was a good amount of other people. There's a lady who answered her phone one time.
Oh,
what?
I know, which I haven't experienced in a while, and that annoyed me. As far as the movie itself goes, and I know Chris, you watched it too, so I'll be kind of brief. I'll say ultimately, I really didn't like the movie. I wanted to at times, but I think it's far too rushed through its story. Like, it felt like it tried to pack a lot of whatever, you know, books or manga that this is based on. It felt like it packed a lot of that into a single movie, and I think it could have taken its time a lot more.
Yeah, it's based on the first 3 manga books, I believe, is what I've heard, and it feels that way. It feels like there's a bunch of different stuff going on. There's not really a focus on any one plot, it feels like. Yeah. And they introduce a bunch of different things. Some of the things are really cool, but it just doesn't feel right. I think talking about Alita, we have to talk about Alita herself and how she fits into the movie and what she looks like. Because I feel like that's either a hang-up or something that you can get along with and enjoy the movie. I thought, for myself, that Alita, I was really put off at first. And then it actually turns out that she was probably my favorite part of the whole movie.
Well, because like the big eyes and because of the way she looks? Or
yeah, like the big eyes. When the movie first starts and we first see Alita, she opens up her eyes and they're, you know, gigantic. And I was like, oh, geez, that's weird. But I eventually got used to it. Of course, she's all motion capture, you know, like a Planet of the Apes type thing. So she's always CG. She doesn't necessarily always fit in with her human counterparts, the people that are really being filmed, like Christoph Waltz. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, I think I liked the performance from her. And that's the thing. The strongest part of the movie, I think, is Alita. Is kind of what did you think about Alita and her big eyes?
So Alita, I did like the best in the sense that she's certainly the most well-rounded and interesting character by a long shot. Because I mean, she's the one we spend most of the movie with, and you know, because of what we talked about earlier, she's the most developed. Everybody else is a little underdeveloped and kind of just show up when they need to go through like a plot twist or a, you know, like a character arc, essentially. But despite that, like her visuals are like what bothered me, like the CG rendering of her, because I think you're being a little kind when you say she doesn't always fit into the scenes with her human counterparts, because I think she never fit into the scenes with her human counterparts. And that is something that really kept me from connecting with the movie, because I just, you know what, like she just didn't look convincing enough to me. Like it felt like a CG person, and I understand she's not a human. She's kind of a human head with like a robot thing.
Right.
Or something like that, but there's still a massive disconnect because of like skin texture and hair texture. Like I'm just looking at an animated person, and that I could never suspend that disbelief.
I have a question.
Yes.
So this was directed by Robert Rodriguez. And lately, for, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 years, I'm not really sure, I would say that guy has been phoning it in.
Mm-hmm.
Does this movie feel like a movie where the director is capable and is trying and is firing on all cylinders, or does it have that like cheap, like machete feel to it? You know what I mean? Like all those machete movies he did.
I think with this one, they are very much going for non-cheesy effects.
So it's not like a cheap Robert Rodriguez feeling B movie. It's like it feels like a legit movie.
Yeah, it feels a bit more in terms of like CG and quality and special effects. It feels a bit more like Ready Player One. So it's taken very seriously.
Okay, because I haven't seen Robert Rodriguez do something like this, where like a studio other than his own studio was depending on him to churn out like a huge hit with like a big budget.
Yeah. I actually, while watching it, I thought I kind of would have preferred this movie to be a B movie, you know, where he's goofing around and making fun of himself kind of while they're making it. For me, the thing that kind of puts the nail in the coffin of this movie is the lead actor, which I'm not going to say his name because that way I don't feel like I'm calling him out, but he is not very good, and there's no chemistry between him and Alita. And I guess I should also caveat that by saying he's not very good, but the script's not very good. So I don't know if it's because he's not getting the right words to say, or if it's because he's not a very good actor. But there's no chemistry between him and Alita, and so the movie hinges on there being chemistry between him and Alita. Otherwise, you know, you're not going to be on board with it. The whole movie, you know, hinges on that fact. So that's, for me, what really hurts this movie the most.
Yeah, I think that the thing that, opposite of that does kind of bring it out a little bit more is Christoph Waltz's performance, which I think he's not necessarily great, but I at least felt like the sort of father-daughter connection that he has with Alita a little bit at times. But
even then, he's fighting against a tough script.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's like a kudos to him for elevating the material he has.
Yeah, after watching it, I had to rethink to myself. I'm like, is Christoph Waltz a good actor? Because he does all right in this, but then I was like, but sometimes he's not that great in here.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and like as much as I don't necessarily want to see another Alita movie, I think it's a film that could have been better had it been split into two different movies or taken like half of the plot on this one. You know, there's a ton of things that we just breeze through. A TV show, yeah. Also, I think it would be much better if it was just a full-on like CG animated movie and we didn't have to try to blend CG characters with animated people.
It might be better if you guys could say if it were an anime.
Yes, exactly.
What you're describing is basically like, I wish it were, you know, kind of like a cartoon and like a TV show. And like basically you wish it was the source material that it is.
Right, yeah.
Right, if I read mangas.
Yeah, and like,
but I guess I could.
And her animation, like the way she looks, the rendering of her character, like in a vacuum is really good. Like when she's the only one on the screen with like more CG background, it just looks like a very, very pretty like CG film or what's
Right.
the word for like the video game movie cut? Cinematics, like a
Yeah.
video game cinematic.
Yeah.
But it's just like when other real people are involved in that world is when it gets problematic.
Okay, so we do have a listener question about Alita that I wanted to ask you guys. So this is from Jerry Hart on Facebook, and it says, Alita question. Do you think Alita was too much of a Mary Sue in this movie, where she seemed to do everything almost perfectly without much effort? To me, it took out much of the suspense because I never worried about her. So I haven't seen the movie, but you guys have. So first, Justin, what do you think? Do you think she is what Jerry refers to as a Mary Sue?
Yeah, I've never heard that term before, actually. So
It's a term that I'm not like. I get what the term comes from, but I'm not super crazy about it because there's not like a dude equivalent of Mary Sue.
I think there is a dude equivalent.
What is the
of
dude
it.
equivalent called?
I don't know what it's called, but it's just basically, I mean, so a Mary Sue is essentially...
A character who's good at everything for no reason.
Yeah, it actually comes from fan fiction, where you write yourself into the world. Like, so it's like I'd write myself into Harry Potter, and I'm really good, and Harry Potter's like, oh, Chris, you're so good at spells and stuff.
But specifically
So-
to women is the term Mary Sue.
Yeah, this
like
is a Mary Sue.
Rey from Star Wars, the sequel trilogy, is often referred to as a Mary Sue
Yeah,
because
that's
she
why
can fly and she can also wield the lightsaber, and
because she's really good at stuff. And I actually, so that's every time I hear Mary Sue, I'm actually really turned off by that because of everybody that was so upset about Star Wars or whatever, calling her, like all the bros calling her a Mary Sue.
Right.
And I mean, I think Jerry has a point. I just hate that term.
yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
I think I haven't seen the movie, but I think that's kind of where I come down on the term. Like, I don't like the term Mary Sue, but I also don't like when characters are really good at everything for no reason, like Jerry's describing. So I totally understand what he means.
yeah, I understand it, and I'm with you that it can take some suspense out of this movie. But as far as the plot of the film goes, she's like a genetically engineered weapon / mechanism, so she can be good at everything. I think that there's a few things that I could get on board with him about as far as like mental things, like there's a game that like a sport that's played and throughout the movie, and she seems to like come into the sport and immediately understand it, where after seeing that sport played 3 times in the movie, I still don't understand the sport. But she like pops in, so there's like some mental things that happen. But as far as like her being really good suddenly with like at like fighting or picking up a weapon, like that's okay, that didn't bother me.
Yeah. So the guy equivalent of a Mary Sue is called a Gary Stu.
I've never heard of a Gary Stu before, but I've heard of Mary Sue plenty of times. So
That's
Yeah, well, maybe it's because
I think
Star Wars. Everybody's
I think it's because the Star Wars. I think Star Wars has ruined the term Mary Sue for me.
You probably haven't heard of Gary Stu because we live in a world where people are probably more okay with men just being naturally good at everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're full of Gary
So
Stews.
I guess the argument in the Star Wars terminology is from now on, when you hear that Rey's a Mary Sue, you could be like, well, Luke Skywalker was a Gary Stu. Oh, and then you'll be having the dumbest argument ever.
Yeah, I'm with you. Chris, was Alita a Mary Sue or a Gary Stu?
I mean, I think there was enough that she wasn't super great at to start off with. I think we talked about this a little bit.
She's not good at
but
wearing normal size sunglasses. Am I right?
Right. Like how that automatically disqualifies her from being a Mary Sue. There's enough struggle there, I think, that makes it interesting. I do think we were robbed from, well, that's kind of spoilers, so I won't talk about it. But yeah, I think there was enough struggle in there. I was more concerned with other things that were happening in the movie as opposed to whether or not she was too good at stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Cool.
Okay.
All right.
I hope that satisfied your question, Jerry.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Jerry.
It's not the worst movie either. Like, it's kind of watchable just because it does move so fast, but like it's ultimately not great and not good.
Yeah, I kind of figured that once last night or the night before. I can't remember. After you had seen the movie, you were basically like, do you guys want to review Shoplifters instead?
Yeah. I wasn't very subtle with that, was I?
No, and so I was like, well, yes, I do.
Cool. But yeah, unless you have anything else, Chris, I'm done with Alita Battle Angel.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And
Okay. Real quick, guys, out of 5, rate it for me.
I would say 2.
I would say 1.5.
Goodness. Considering like 5 minutes ago or less, you were like, it's not the worst movie. It's pretty watchable.
Well,
to 1.5, that's quite...
Well,
I didn't get that from your review, from your
I'm sorry. Well,
conversation.
there are...
We can go deeper into it, but...
Yeah, I'm trying to not go
do
deeper or whatever. But, there are worse ratings that I could give it. I could go 1.
That's true.
I could go
You
a
could
half.
give it just a regular half.
Yeah.
Or a turkey.
Cool. So, no recommendations for Alita, but it sounds like Isn't It Romantic? You guys both liked way more.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely more.
I'll have to see both of those movies, but that will probably be a conversation for another time.
So we have one more thing to get into on What's in Our Minds, correct?
Whew. Yes, we do. Last week, we had a conversation about the Oscars changes. The controversial Oscar changes where they were talking about which categories were not going to be broadcast on the air, but were instead going to be edited in some form, and those were supposed to mostly take place during commercials.
Yes.
All of this so that the ceremony that is broadcast on television could be under 3 hours or right at 3 hours. That was the ultimate goal. And as a result, everyone got up in arms about it. And we had a conversation about it last week, which you should all listen to. But during said conversation, Justin made a prediction.
Yes.
And Justin, why don't you go ahead and just take it from there?
Yeah, so I'll condense it very briefly. What I said was that I think the Oscars just announced these categories including the cinematography and editing category as intentionally controversial decisions to drum up any press they could, any attention they could for the Oscars, with full intentions of reversing their decision and airing at least those 2 categories. So I think it was basically just a big conning people into giving the Oscars attention. So of course this week they've decided to reverse their decision and air all 4 categories and air every award and not save any for off the air, whatever weird thing they were going to do with them.
The only thing wrong with your theory there, Justin, at least the way I feel about it, this makes me want to watch it less. We were going to watch it no matter what, right? The 3 of us, because we host a podcast about movies. So we were going to watch it no matter what. But legitimately, I want to watch it less. When they announce these things and then walk it back, and I just, that's the only thing.
It gives you, I didn't want to say it gives you the impression. I think what it does is it removes the impression that this ceremony means anything or matters to anyone. If the people running the show don't care about the show that much to make such a wrong-footed decision, then why should we care? Why should anyone care? Does the award mean anything? Who cares? What's going on?
And this week they've announced that they are going to bring Queen on to play a few songs. I don't even think, does Bohemian Rhapsody has a best song that's nominated? I'm not sure. But they're just going to bring Queen on to play some songs. That doesn't make any sense if they're trying to cut it shorter.
Isn't that what made people like Bohemian Rhapsody? Is that it's just Queen songs?
No, right. But what I'm saying is, and that's fine, they can bring them on, but if they're trying to save time, maybe cut Queen just playing Queen songs,
Yeah, and it can't be nominated for best song because it's best original song. So it can't be
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Another one.
Another part of that conversation we had last week, Justin, was I said, if that does happen, I will not be convinced that it was planned and not just massive incompetence on the part of the people running the show. And that is exactly how I feel now. Like Chris, it just makes it seem like this is all just one, it's nothing. This just means nothing anymore,
I can't argue with you on that because there's really no proof, and we'll never know if I was right in their reasons for doing it.
And I'll still watch it, and I'll still be excited, and I'm sure I will still be upset when Green Book or Bohemian Rhapsody wins Best Picture. But as it stands now, this is just shining a light on just how little thought and meaning actually is in this ceremony.
Yeah, I'm with you on that because even hypothetically, we know my theory is true, that they did it intentionally to drum up press. It would show that they're willing to do whatever for ratings.
They're willing to make you think they don't care about important categories like editing and cinematography. They're willing to make you think that they care so little about their craft that they are willing to even think about broadcasting those in commercials. Either way, it's just like there's no scenario where they don't look terrible and belittle their own show.
So all of the right films better win this year, or people are going to be extra mad after this is all said and done.
They've got to nominate the right films in order for them to win.
Well,
Yeah, the right films already aren't going to win unless it's Roma.
Yeah, that may be
or
true.
Or the favorite.
That may be true. That's what I mean. Like the best choices in the categories that we have. Those better win.
Yeah.
All right. So I think
I guess we can look forward to Green Book.
Let's talk about a better movie than that, like Shoplifters. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it.
他に教えられることが何にもないんです。
子供にはね、母親が必要なんですよ。
産んだらみんな母親になるの？
でもほら、血が繋がってない方がいいってこともあるじゃん。
All right, so as always with these reviews, we're going to be doing a non-spoiler section first. We'll be talking very generally about the film, so you won't get anything spoiled until we give you our spoiler alert and move into spoilers. So you can keep listening. You'll hear the spoiler alert. You can't ignore it. And when you hear that, you can pause it, go watch the movie, come back and finish the episode.
Okay, so Shoplifters, directed by Hirokazu Koreeda. I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Lovely
Yeah,
enunciation.
Thank you. Starring Lily Frankie, Sakura Ando, Kirin Kiki. The IMDb synopsis says a family of small-time crooks take in a child they find outside in the cold.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, that is an accurate synopsis. All right, so guys, who wants to go first about Shoplifters? I don't hear any volunteers, so I guess I'll do it.
Okay.
I
can do it.
Okay, go first.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll start out by saying I found this film very captivating. One thing I was worried about looking at the plot, and this comes from like the IMDb synopsis plot, which is really the only thing I knew about the movie because I never saw a trailer or anything. But on paper, it sounds like it could be a bit in danger of going to like a very melodramatic place. But I was very happy that the movie doesn't go there. Like its performances and what happens in the story and the characters are very much rooted in reality, and the film stays in that sort of slice of life / neo-realist space.
A slice of lice?
Oops.
That sounds unpleasant.
Yeah.
You need to get shampoo for that.
Right. So it's a slice of life, not a slice of lice, because that sounds grosser.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, so it's a slice of life and a neo-realist film, and those are films that I'm always a fan of. And I think the film, I don't think you can avoid comparing it to a Otsu film.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very much a film that Otsu would have made comparable to like Tokyo Story. It's just, it's got a bit more contemporary filmmaking in it. Not a whole lot, because I think one of the more notable things is like the camera work and the way this film is shot and framed. And going along with like the way that the film's shot, we're not necessarily looking at the characters from any position other than observing them for most of the time. We don't give any like real high angle shots where we're looking down on them, and there's no real like sense of the film judging them for us. It's basically putting you as the audience there to observe this family and what they're going through and the actions that they take, and letting you figure out how you feel about them, right? And letting you judge whether or not you like each character. Because, almost every character in this movie is at times likable and at times flawed and unlikable. And I think what the movie does that I found captivating and very, very interesting is like making me constantly examine my feelings for these characters and search search myself for like, why do I feel this way about these characters? What are they, ultimately I'm always reevaluating and looking at these characters in different lights throughout the films as different things are unveiled. And to me, that makes like a fascinating film because it always kept my mind going, my mind working. So I was like never bored despite it being like a slower paced sort of realist movie. And ultimately I very, very much enjoyed this movie and was very moved by it.
I'm right there with you. So this is a film that I've been looking forward to for quite a while. I recall hearing about it back in Cannes. So as soon as the chance to ditch Alita Battle Angel came up for this movie, I jumped all over it. I really enjoyed this film, guys. It is quite good. I've been thinking about it nonstop since I've seen it. I even thought about trying to watch it again before this episode, but that didn't happen. I'm not certain just yet if it would have been on my top 10 of the year had I got a chance to see it earlier, but I can tell you it certainly would have been very close if it wasn't.
Yeah, it was. I've kind of looked at my list again, and I think it fits right in the very like high end of my top 10, like well, not high, but I guess at low. I don't know, like 8, 9, 10 range.
Yeah, exactly. If you ask me at the end of this conversation, I might have a different answer for you, So I enjoyed all of the performances in this movie. They are all very understated, and they feel honest. I enjoyed the complicated dynamics between all these people that kept getting more and more complicated as the movie went on. And as our opinions of them were always shifting and changing, and like Justin said, we were constantly reevaluating how we felt about these people. The movie right now is currently nominated for Best Foreign Film, and I'm not certain now if I wanted this one, or I would have wanted this one to be nominated over Burning, because I think Burning is quite good. But I will not be upset if this ends up winning Best Foreign Language Film, like at all. Because it is well deserving, and you made some good comparisons with Tokyo Story and Otsu earlier. I'm really curious to see, Chris, what you think about Shoplifters.
Like you, Mike, I've been excited to see this since it won the Palme d'Or. I'm glad we finally got the chance to watch it, and then we're going to get to talk about it more. This movie really gave me the feels. This story of this makeshift family that kind of tread in this morally gray area like both of you guys are talking about. I loved spending time with this family. Like you said, Mike, I just want to go back and watch it again, not even because I like the story or anything, but I like spending time with these characters. It makes me feel like I'm part of the family as I'm watching it, and I think that's kind of, you were talking about Otsu and how we're just observing them. But I think just like when you're part of a family, you get annoyed with your family members, and so your evaluations of these people are constantly changing because it feels like you're part of the family. At least that's how I felt at watching it. I loved all these characters; they were so great, and it was so just entrancing. Like I usually write notes, and when I went back to look at my notes, all that they said was shoplifters, underlined. And that was all that I had because I was just so into it. I loved watching every moment of it. This has some of the best acting performances of 2018, and that's including the 2 children actors.
Yeah, I was about to say that little girl.
Yeah. I mean, we had a lot of cool performances last year from children, from Hereditary girl, an 8th grade girl, Elsie Fisher. But I think these 2 kids are just really phenomenal in this. I don't know if it comes from the directing or not, but this movie just is. I don't think that there's any doubt. Just talking about it, it would have been on my top 10 list if I had a chance to see it. So I loved it. I can't wait to talk more about it, and I'm ready to dive in if you guys are.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like we all loved it, which is good. Well, do we say loved? I say loved, but I don't want to speak for you guys.
I'm very enthusiastic. If it's not a love, it's a very strong like.
Yeah,
you still have to like. It's got to court you a little bit.
Yeah. I gotta flirt with it for a while and see.
Yeah.
See how it
It's going to
feels.
take you out to dinner.
Well,
I totally understand that.
The true test to know if you really truly loved a movie, like you can be high on a movie after you first see it, right? And you could think you loved it.
Yeah.
But the only way to really tell is to make sure you don't cool on it by the end of the year.
Yeah, well, that's a long time from now. I don't know.
Well,
if I can wait
that is. But I mean, like, basically, if you're still thinking about this movie, we may not be able to actually officially add it to our best of the year lists next year because it came out last year, technically.
Yeah.
But if you're still thinking about it, in 6 months, I think there's your answer,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that is definitely true.
Because, there are some movies that I thought I loved, and then, a month or two later, I'm like, what happened in that movie? Oh, yeah, it was good, but I don't think about it, like, in the shower, or I don't think about it, like, on my way to work, or, like, while doing things, so.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Time will tell. It's probably too early for love, but, I believe in love at first sight.
Yeah, and you know what? And I believe that it's true love because this movie's good.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Do you guys want to talk about the cinematography a little bit?
Yep.
I'll just go off a little bit. What I really enjoyed was the height of the camera, because we're always similar to what we talked about when we did our Tokyo Story episode. We're always kind of at that level of like someone sitting on their knees or sitting like cross-legged on like the floor, right? We're like kind of at that eye level.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoy that we never seem to look at anybody, from like a low angle and look up, or a high angle and looking down. There never seems to be any drama that the camera is imparting on the scene or on the characters.
Right. I mean, there's some wide shots where it's like looking down or something like that, but it's not like you're not like it's not filmed melodramatically at all.
Yeah, yeah. I think anywhere where we're dealing with characters in their scenes, like they don't really use the camera to emphasize anything.
Yeah, I agree with that. By the way, that little girl that they kidnapped in this movie, or found or whatever, that little girl's adorable.
Yeah,
for sure.
Very, very adorable. I think what's very interesting in this film, and I don't think this is any sort of spoiler to say, but like the themes that happen in the film, and I think one of the themes that we can talk about is like the film really makes you look at different situations that have, probably different moral implications depending on what kind of person you are, and it kind of makes you like examine them, and I want to say it makes you kind of like see the other side of these things that these characters are doing. And I like that, as I said before, that the film doesn't make the decision for us, doesn't judge them for us. And I like that we're able to make our own decisions about the actions that the characters are doing in the movie. And I think that was like a theme that's pretty important throughout the entire movie.
I think so too. I think it's imperative to the feeling the movie leaves you with. In fact, it's that feeling that, like, how do I feel about these people kind of question that's left in your mind that I think makes the movie so good. So I think it's interesting how the film slowly unveils these questionable deeds that some of the characters have done. Sometimes in the movie, and we can go over this more into spoilers if you want to, but like they'll tell you a bad thing they did and then hold off telling you the reason why they did that bad thing for a while, right? Like multiple scenes. Like they'll hold off telling you the reason why they made that reference, And then so in the meantime, when they mention this terrible thing they might have done, you have to constantly reevaluate these people as things happen. You can never get a handle on them. And like I said, I can talk more into spoilers if you want to, but I think that's part of what this movie's trying to do, which is to show you, oh, these people are nice. They're treating me kindly. They're good to kids, Oh, what's that? They did something really shady, maybe? Oh, what's that? Maybe there's more to it than that, And like I think those moral questions make this movie worth unpacking, because there's a lot of gray area that it's not just as simple as like, these are good people or these are bad people.
Yeah. Where do you guys think that falls on something that we've talked about, over the past like couple months on a couple different episodes, is the Roger Ebert quote of like movies being empathy machines? Do you think that this movie is creating empathy in that sense?
I think that's certainly what it sets out to do. I think ultimately how you come down feeling about these people depends a lot on what you bring to the table.
How empathetic you can be, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Your empathy, I think, is going to vary from person to person.
Well, yeah, how forgiving you can be of the things that they do. I think it's really laid out in like the third act, the last 20 minutes or so.
Yeah.
The way they explain it. Yeah, so we might want to get into spoilers on that one if there's not anything else.
The only other thing I wanted to talk about is that, did you guys see the stories about the slight controversy with this film in Japan?
Oh, no.
Which is like that the Prime Minister of Japan, he has like a very well-documented habit of calling people who are Japanese or of Japanese descent and congratulating them on like the good deeds that they've done. And after this film won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, he has notably not called this guy. And the theory is that this portrays a side of Japan, like the poverty, the lower class struggle that
it's not pretty.
They don't like, that the government does not like. So they're very much like not putting any light on this film at all, and trying to, because they try to like portray this glorious, fun, cool Japan that we like see more regularly.
Right. I haven't heard that exact same thing with the Prime Minister, but I have heard that in Japan, this is a movie that maybe rings a little truer than they're comfortable with.
Yeah.
In the way it depicts poverty, within Japan.
Yeah, and I think, contextually, it's an important thing to consider, and something to, I think, would improve your experience watching the film to like kind of think about that.
Absolutely, and that's the kind of stuff. The reason I love like Criterion discs so much, like when you watch a movie on Criterion, they give you that kind of context in the special features or like a booklet or something to kind of like tell you like, hey, this is when the movie came out and here's why it's important. So not to say that this movie is going to be released on Criterion, but hopefully, whenever it is released on whatever format, that meta reaction to the movie is captured in the special features.
I hope so too. Like it's all very interesting. I mean, sometimes that's something that can make a film significantly more important. Like not that this film is not good, but that in itself, like shining a light on something like that. And I don't know that this film is making much of a political statement, but like doing that can make your film worthwhile, even if it's not the best film, if it's important.
Yeah, exactly. Just knowing like the context around it. Like look at High Noon, right? Like High Noon today is so good because of what the movie's really about. It's not really about an outlaw coming to town and a sheriff, needing friends to help him kill an outlaw. It's about something else completely different. It's about, the Red Scare and all that stuff in McCarthy. And so I think knowing what the movie's really about can only help, no matter where you're at in the world. And some people don't get that meta context because, they live in America or they live in, Mexico and they don't know what's going on in Japan, So I agree. That's good to bring up.
Cool. Well, yeah, so that's all I have for non-spoilers.
Me too. I am ready to get into spoilers because I don't think we can really do this movie justice in non-spoilers.
Right. No, I don't think so. So let's go.
Let's do it.
No, I guess Rosebud is just a piece in a jigsaw puzzle.
I'll tell you what. Give me one cigarette you got up there. I'll tell you all about it.
And here we go.
So before we get real far into spoilers, I kind of wanted to dive back into what I was saying earlier about sometimes you get to know a little bit more information about the people, and then it's a long time before you get to know the reasons why they do the things you just found out about. So like, for example, when the grandma dies and they bury her on like the property so that they can keep cashing her pension check. While doing that, like they reference like, I can't believe we're burying another body or something like that.
Right.
And they don't comment on what that other body was for, 15, 20 minutes after that, So then you're like reevaluating everything. You're reevaluating why are they taking these kids, Like I knew there were, alternate motives involved, but just how alternate, you know what I mean? Like why would these people need to bury a body? What's going on, and turns out it was like her ex-husband who was abusive or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, not what a law-abiding good person would do, but also it's not as simple as like, you know, they murdered someone for no reason, you know, or they murdered a kid or that they took or something like that, right? So like the movies constantly keeping you guessing as of to how bad these people are and how much do they really care about these kids, you know?
Yeah, the whole movie you're thinking, are they taking this little girl because they want to protect her? Or is there some other angle at it?
I mean, there seems to be an angle on every other kid.
Right.
Like the main boy, he's good at shoplifting. The main girl, the sex worker, masturbator girl, they get the parents' money, and then they also get probably her bringing in more money than any of them into the household as well.
Right. They actually said that she wasn't contributing.
Maybe, did they? Okay.
Yeah, they were annoyed. They wanted her to start.
Because of the money.
But she is making more money. So you're right on that. I think that's what's so interesting about the film is that all of these things, like every bad thing that is done just about like has this justification that comes up eventually that makes you question how terrible it is, and or makes you at least like understand why it's being done.
Or for me, on the flip side, it makes you question even the noble deeds a bit more. Like,
yeah,
do they really want these kids, or do they like? Is it like a symbiotic relationship? Right? Is it like the kids help by shoplifting for you and providing a good cover,
right?
And on top of it, you get to love a kid. You know,
yeah,
right. My question would be: so even if let's say that the whole reason for having the kid around is just for them to get ahead, right? Just for this kid to shoplift. Does that take away from the moments of joy, the legitimate joy that they have, like at the beach? Like, I think they're all happy, and there's no, they're not trying to get anything from the kid at the beach. They're just hanging out, and they're having a great time, and they love each other, I think, in those moments.
Yeah, but
even if
they can't be
they're
there.
using them.
Yeah, they are, but they can't be there when it matters. As soon as the kid gets caught,
right?
They basically try to 86 him from their life. They're like moving out, you know what I mean? And get caught.
Right.
And
yeah. Oh yeah, I mean
and it's like if you can't depend on the people that call themselves your dad and want you to call them your dad, if they're going to abandon you whenever you get in trouble doing what they taught you.
Right.
Like you know, what good are they? Like
Yeah.
what do those good times mean if they're
Right.
not willing to see you through the bad times, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think the key word, I think it was you, Mike, who said symbiotic.
That was me.
Yeah, I think that's the key word to like all of these relationships and things that happen is that even if someone's taking advantage of someone else, they also are doing something good with it, right? Like they're also providing something for the other person, right? It's not like parasite host relationship, if that makes sense. There's a lot of mutual benefits. Like the young boy, they are using him to shoplift, which is, you know, not good, right? But
yeah, and especially because he starts to have moral qualms against it as well, just naturally.
Yeah, and you find out eventually that he was taken out of a car where he was like living, right? So basically they set it up to the like where he is now is arguably a better place. Mm-hmm. Or at least like he's got a family
Same
that
with
loves
the
him.
little
He's
girl.
not, yeah, and he's not stuck in a car. He's not like living on the streets. He has a home, and yeah, like you said, same with the little girl too. Like there's this mutual benefit to everything that is fascinating to like just dwell on.
Yeah, it makes it impossible to deduce exactly the true intentions, you know?
Yeah.
Well,
and if
I would argue I would argue that almost any relationship is symbiotic, like whether you're doing morally gray things or not.
It's true, but also, do you want a parental relationship to be symbiotic? Or do you just want a parent to love you? You know what I mean? Like, you don't want your parents' love to be dependent on whether or not you can provide food for them.
Well, do you think that the love stopped. I don't think that the love stopped when he got caught. They just knew that they had to take care of the other people that were around and themselves.
It's true. It's true. But still, their decisions and their life decisions led them to having to make that decision. All I'm saying is either way, you can't be sure at any given time that they will be there for you. You can't be sure that they haven't put themselves in a situation where they can be there for you.
Well, that's what's so heartbreaking, because I'm with you, Chris, because I don't think those decisions were made in any very cold, sort of calculated manner. Like, I think there's shame. I think there's regret and grief about their decisions, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Like the decision to leave the kid in the hospital.
Yeah, they didn't want to do it, but at the same time, I mean, they did it in a second. Granted, they had a kidnapped victim, a body buried in the house, and a girl who's supposed to be in Australia with them. But still, it's just terrible, and these people shouldn't have access to children. That said, the movie also very much paints into the perspective of these people seem to be only taking from parents who don't value their children, right? Like the little girl was locked out on a balcony in the cold, and they
didn't even...
What?
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I'm saying they even came up upon the parents arguing about what to do with her, and they even heard the words, "I didn't want her," and the parents didn't report it. So that one's an easy case. The kid, if he were locked in a car and left unattended, that's an easy case too.
Yeah, I feel like they never really wanted to take the girl. It was just like their hands were tied. They're like,
That's like my brother picking up stray dogs. Like, he doesn't want another dog, but he's not going to let a little puppy die.
Exactly.
And then as a result, we got years of extra dogs to deal with.
Yeah. And I think the love is there genuinely, right? And I want to just talk about the scene because it's one of the scenes that moved me the most and kind of got me a little choked up watching it. And it's when the mom and the girl are out by the fire. They're burning her dress, right? Because it's after she's on the TV. The girl is being kidnapped, and I guess I'll quote mom unquote is like hugging her from behind, and she's just saying like, if someone, she says something like, if someone hits you, they say they hit you because they love you. That's not love. And she's like, this is what you do when you love someone. And she like hugs her and embraces her, very motherly. And I don't know, that scene really got to me. It was very sweet.
Yeah, and I think she's more aware of their situation, or at least like the mother character. I can't remember her name, but the mother role in the movie, because she's also the one at the end who, tells him about his parents and like which car they took him out of, and says, if you want to go find them, here's your chance, and then she tells the father figure, he's too good for us. Yeah. And so I think she's aware, and I think she's using her time in jail as an opportunity to do right by these kids now, or at least by the one she can. I'm not sure they can ever do right by the teenage girl, Aki, or whatever her name is.
Right.
Yeah. I was kind of on board with them the whole time. I mean, and there was the things like, oh, I didn't think we'd ever bury another body here. And I was like, what is that about? But it was when the cops started laying out everything they did in like real talk fashion, right? I was like, oh wait, all these things, I there's like love in their hearts, and I see that love. But when the cops say it, it sounds very different than the way they talked about it.
Right.
And that was where I had the most issues with it, because I'm like, oh yeah, I guess all this is really great.
Yeah. Well, there's the scene where the cop is like, yeah, so you kidnapped this little girl, and is it the dad who's like, oh no, we didn't kidnap her. She was out on the porch by herself, and she was cold and in a terrible situation. Yeah. So we took her home with us and kept her there.
Saved her. Yeah.
And then the cop says, yeah, that's kidnapping.
Yeah, exactly.
And then there's also that bit at the end where the mother figure is basically saying like, just because you give birth doesn't mean you're a mother. Yeah. And like there are so many people out there who, just because they are capable, physically capable of, giving birth to a child, doesn't mean that they are mentally capable of raising one, you know? And there are so many people out there who, you know, get this wonderful gift and don't appreciate it and lock their daughters out on a balcony in the cold.
Right. Yeah. And that's also where we find out that she can't have children, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Which I think is one of those touches. And I think there's a lot of them for every character. That one specifically, and I'm thinking to like the scene of the mom hugging the girl by the fire, is like when I revisit this film, inevitably, because I will, like those sort of scenes are going to have so much more weight now that I kind of know these characters' backstories, and I think it's going to make like rewatches of this film like really good. Yeah, even more moving.
Yeah, I agree. The one thing in the movie that, and I had to ask you guys a little bit earlier about this, that I was unclear on was the relationship between Aki's character, which was the teenage girl, and what she had with her family. I mean, I know it's intentionally vague, but you definitely get the idea that she is estranged from her family with no contact because they think she's in Australia. But what did you guys think of the relationship with her parents and the grandma figure? Do you think her parents really thought she was in Australia, or do you think they just didn't care enough to really ask what was going on? And what do you think Aki thinks?
I think what Justin said on that was that Aki was from a first marriage. I think that they say that she's in Australia to appease the second wife, you know, so that the girl won't be around, right? But I think that she kind of got pawned off to the grandma by the dad after the first marriage is kind of my take on it. And then I also think that Aki believes that or I don't know whether it's true or not, but I think that the dad doesn't necessarily want to see her, and has been, she's been pushed to the wayside, I think. I don't know. What do you think, Justin?
Well, like Mike said, it's intentionally vague, and I think the ultimate thing that I took away from it was that I don't have the specifics, but every other character that's involved in this family has their own reasons for staying there, right? Like with the little girl, they say she can leave at any time, she can go home, but everybody has a benefit from being in this family. And I think the assumption that I got, and maybe it would be revealed and be a little clearer watching it a second time, but just based on this first viewing, I just kind of figured we were to assume that she doesn't want to be with her family, and this gives her another family, a place to live. She gets, you know, as much benefit from it as anyone else gets benefit from anyone else in this movie. Yeah, I guess I just didn't feel that it was super important. And
I think it is, because at the end, she has that scene where she realizes that the grandma kept her around for the money. And that might just be the way the cops are trying to spin it to her.
Yeah, I think that was it.
But also, we never see her again after that. She goes to the house. We see her like opening up the house where they used to live. But we don't get like an ending closure scene with that character like we do the little girl and the little boy. Like we kind of have an idea like what became of them, or kind of have like a last goodbye, you know? But with her, I never got a sense of where she was at the end of the movie. And right. I thought she was one of the more interesting stories in the movie. So if I could pick anything about this movie that I wanted just a little more of, I would have liked to seen like what her state of mind was at the end of this whole thing.
And Mr. Four, maybe a little bit more of that relationship.
Oh yeah, Mr. Four. I didn't even think about that guy, but I would like to see like maybe a hint of what Aki's next step is, because I felt devastated for that girl.
And I think it's, once again, even though the grandma may have been keeping around for the money, I believe wholeheartedly watching the movie, and maybe a second viewing will change that, but the grandma loved Aki.
Sure, but is Aki going to be able to come to that conclusion, you know?
Yeah, and exactly. What does Aki think after the
And that's what I wanted more of. Like, I believe that, you know, the little girl is a little girl, so she's going to forget about these people within a couple of years. Significantly, or her significant memories will fade, you know? But and like same with the little boy probably. But we still get an idea that like they don't hold resentment. But yeah, she's a mystery to me. It seems like her heart was pretty broken at the end of it.
I agree with that. And one question I wanted to ask you guys, which I think is a bit of a theme in the film too, is like, what is the definition of a family? And I'm curious, I kind of think I know, but I want to hear like a little definitively. Like, do you guys think this is genuinely a family, or do you think that it was the illusion of a family that kind of falls apart at the end of the film once everything is out in the open?
I think it's a family.
I think it is an illusion of a family, but not with any ill will being bared towards anyone at the end, right? Like, I think it all comes tumbling down because these people, the adults, the mother and the father figures, are so irresponsible and stupid and selfish that they've made so many bad decisions that they are not capable of living in society because they're going to get caught at any moment and go to jail. Right? So you can't claim to be someone's father whenever your own past decisions make it to where if they go to the hospital, you have to abandon them.
Right.
But that said, I think there's genuine love there. But I think there's no way you can watch this movie and not come to the conclusion that these people are dangerous. And even if they are well-meaning, they are bad people and they are criminals and do not deserve children.
Yeah, I think that they're not good for the kids, I think, no matter what.
Right. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. But I mean, what makes a family, I know families, well, no, I don't know. But there are families like this that are related by blood. And that would do the same thing, right? Does that make them a family over this family? Like, that's kind of my take. I think that there are families that are related by blood that fall apart, such as this family. So that is my argument for why they are a family. Things fall apart sometimes.
Maybe, but their bond isn't strong. Their bond is weak. If you shake a stick at them, their bond will fall apart. You know, if the wind changes, the weather changes, if they jaywalk, it's flimsy, right? And that may be true with like actual biological bonds as well. But I think in order to have a surrogate family, it needs to be like a family that can replace your biological family and be considered a family. There needs to be some sense of loyalty to one another. And I don't know that there's any of that in this movie. I think there's loyalty to money that I see.
Right.
And maybe as time goes on, I can see a different side of it. You know what I mean? But right now, it's like 60-40 in the way of like, these people are terrible.
Yeah. Well, I think that what you're describing is more so the relationship from the parents to the children and the grandmother. I think that there is a sense of loyalty, definitely from the boy to them, because he's pretty devastated at the end of the film when he asks the father, like, were you guys going to leave me in the hospital? Mm-hmm. So I think he has it. I think the little girl's starting to get there. I would argue that Aki has it for the grandmother, at least.
Yeah, and that's what it's so heartbreaking. It's like the conclusions that the kids all come to lead me to believe that it was not a real family.
Yeah.
Because all three of those kids basically get screwed over at the end and come to the conclusion that these people were mostly using them, I think. That's what I get. I don't know about the little girl because she's...
Yeah, the little girl.
I don't think she's capable of processing that.
And her face at the very end, we never see what she sees, but depending on what we think she sees can change.
Yeah. And her situation is the worst.
I don't know. I think I come down a little softer on the family than you do, Mike. And they are doing horrible things. I agree with you on all that, but I just think ultimately there's their own kind of loyalty in there. But I'll have to watch it again and
I think
see it.
Go ahead, Mike.
Well, I was just saying, like another surrogate family movie that comes to mind would be like Boogie Nights, right? Like that seems more like an actual surrogate family with unconditional love than this one does.
Yeah, but then you have Julianne Moore showing Dirk Diggler or Mark Wahlberg cocaine.
Yeah, but they don't perceive that as a bad thing in that scene.
Right, but I think just like when the money runs out, the family starts to fall apart. But
spoilers for the end of Boogie Nights. Guess what happens at the end of Boogie Nights? They hold it together. That's what I'm saying. Through the rocky times. It's never going to be as happy as it was, and it may be a little different, but you know what? That's the difference where I'm coming from, I think, is that like in that movie with a surrogate family, you get the idea that things are going to pull through and that their familial bonds are so strong that it doesn't matter that they've all made bad choices. In the other movie, in Shoplifters, it's like they've all made bad decisions and they are definitely not going to make it through all this.
Right. Well, I think it's worth noting the time where things really start to go downhill and things start to crumble and fall apart is when the father starts to like break his own rules, because we get the scene where the son talks about the rules that his father has imparted on him for shoplifting. He's like, oh, it's in the store, which means nobody has done it yet. Nobody owns it yet. It's nobody. So you're not stealing from anybody. You're not hurting anybody.
Exactly.
And we get that moment where he's going to break into the car and the son starts questioning him, like, this is somebody's car, right? Like, I thought we weren't supposed to steal from actual people.
Exactly.
And it's at that point when they start breaking his own rules and his own morals. And I think it starts to come through that he's breaking his own morals anyways, because he likes to think that he's not stealing the kids from anyone, but he really is. Like, if not like the parents that aren't taking care of these kids and being good parents initially, he's stealing something away from these kids by doing what he's doing to them, right?
Yeah. He's stealing their morals away from them without even them realizing it, right? Like the old shop owner that gives him like the popsicles and he's like, don't make her do it, treat like his little sister.
Right.
Yeah.
And that, I think that contributes a lot to it as well, where he's just like, he starts to have moral like moral objections.
He's old enough to start questioning.
Exactly. Yeah.
Whole lot to unpack in this film. I think we mentioned it a couple of times, but like rewatching this film, you guys almost did it before this episode to see it a second time. I almost did the same thing. I think there's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, absolutely. And my opinion of these characters could change, like I'm not without empathy for all of them. I just, at the end of the movie, I'm not unhappy that they are away from these children.
Well, that's what I like about it, is that I don't think you can come down fully on one side or the other, right? And
no,
I don't think...
Exactly.
It's certainly morally gray. It's a very gray area. I have empathy for them, but Mike is not wrong that they shouldn't be teaching kids how to shoplift, Yeah. But at the same time, I love them. It's hard to explain.
Yeah, I would almost argue that I'm not totally sure that it's morally gray, because the things that they're doing by the end of the film are spelled out, by the cops that it's wrong. I think it's just showing you the black and the white and saying that it can exist in people.
Right. I guess what I mean.
Well, I think I think I get what you're saying, Chris, which is that it's not that necessarily that they're doing right things and wrong things. We know the right things and the wrong things, but sometimes we have to choose to believe that they are doing the wrong things for the right reasons, and that creates a gray shade to them, right? Like.
Yeah,
like people are gray.
Well, basically what I'm saying is that, like, yeah, we know that like shoplifting is wrong in a black and white world, but like also their love for the children is symbiotic, so that makes it a little gray, right? Like they don't take any children that aren't somewhat useful to them. You know what I mean? Like they don't have any freeloaders there.
Well, I don't think that they chose the kids because they could steal. They chose them because they were in dire situations and then taught them to steal.
Right. But they weren't going to steal them and be like, we're going to raise them unconditionally. We're going to steal them with the intention of indoctrinating them into our lifestyle.
And this is a very different thing, but like my dad made me mow the lawn once a week, which is a thing that he would have had to do.
That son of a bitch.
Yeah, I still haven't forgiven him. But I mean, to a certain extent, maybe there's some.
It's like earning your keep.
Is very different.
The parents view it as like the kids got to earn their keep. Right. Yeah.
I don't know. It's very great, or I shouldn't say it's very good, and I probably could debate and talk about this forever, but I don't know where I'm going with that.
That's okay. I think we should maybe put a bow on it, unless anybody has anything else.
Nope. I think that does it.
Cool. The only other thing I wanted to ask, now that we've gone through the conversation, because you mentioned it earlier, Mike, how do you feel about this in terms of your top 10? And also, do you feel any better about it's like, should it win best foreign film? I mean, not best picture.
Well, I think of the foreign films that I have seen, yes, it should win best foreign film. Only because I still think...
Wait, over Roma?
Only because I still think Roma should win best picture.
Okay.
Yeah.
Based on the movies that are elected. nominated, whatever. But ultimately, yes, I still don't know if this would have made it on my top 10, but probably, right? I can't think of a movie. Oh, I can think of a couple movies, but like, there's not many movies last year that had this kind of conversation. You know what I mean? Where it's just like endless routes you can go down.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think, Chris?
I'm still. I think it would have been on my top 10 before the conversation. I think it should win Best Foreign Film in a perfect world where Roma wins Best Picture, and then this can win Best Foreign Film. I haven't seen all the foreign films, which is disappointing. I'm disappointed in myself.
Same.
But
you've seen 3 of them. Right?
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
So yeah,
that's most technically.
It's true.
Pretty solid, yeah.
Statistically speaking.
But it gives us something to shoot for next year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like it, and the fact that we can talk about it like this, and I'm still not exactly sure how I feel. I mean, I'm sure that I love the film, but I'm still not sure how I feel about the characters.
Yeah, I have this film in my top 10, I think, of 2018 now, revised. I think it was hanging around the 8-9 spot, I think, but I feel like it might move up just because any film that like we can have this conversation about, that makes it very notable to me. And, I think the same thing for like the Best Foreign Film category, as you guys have said. I want Roma to win Best Picture. If it doesn't, then it should win Best Foreign Film. But I think it's not that fun if it wins both. So I think this should win. I definitely liked it better than Cold War, which is the other one that I've seen. Not to say anything negative about Cold War, because that's really good too. But
same to everything you just said.
But I like this one a little bit better. So yeah.
Heard. Yeah, that does it.
It does. So thank you guys for listening. It's a long episode. We really appreciate you sticking around.
We do.
And, of course, thank you, Jake Wagner-Russell, for doing our intro and outro music. If you want to hear more of his music, you can do so at soundcloud.com/bopscotch.
Bopscotch. Sorry.
Is there an echo in here?
All right, so stay tuned for this channel, subscribe to us, and so you can get our next episode, which should come out, and it will be the Casual Cinecast Awards show. We're going
to be giving out...
Go on, Chris.
We're going to be giving out the casualties. That's what we're going to call the award, is casualties.
Oh, wow.
That's good.
That's
depressing. So anyways, what we're going to be doing is picking our own awards, where the right movies will be sure and win awards. So tune in.
Yeah. And we're not going to do like Best Picture, Best of the Year. We kind of already, we did our top 10s and whatnot, but these are kind of different categories, like, what was the most disappointing movie, or the most surprisingly good movie?
Movie you've turned around on. I don't know. We're kind of just throwing it all up in the air. It's not set in stone yet. So if you think of any cool awards ideas that are unique or fun, send them our way. We'll give you credit.
Absolutely. And send those on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to @casualcinecast or to our email casualcinemedia@gmail.com.
Yeah, thanks so much for listening, guys. We will see you next time for the casualties.
See you later.
Bye.